My name is Melis. I'm... Oh, sorry, I messed up. I got scared. Okay. Let's start over. My name is Melis Ozkan. She, her, hers, and I'm from Chicago. So I first went to student counseling services the spring quarter of my first year, and that was because I was facing a lot of anxiety that was building up. I think I always kind of used my anxiety as a motivational tool to kind of do work, but once I got to Chicago, it started just weighing too heavily on me. And that kind of started to mix with automatic negative thoughts of like, oh, I don't have friends. I felt lonely even though I was surrounded by so many people and was in an awesome house with people that were so welcoming. It was definitely difficult because I also felt like I didn't deserve to feel that. Like I was so lucky to be here. I was studying biology. I still am, but it was something that I really loved. And yet I had these feelings. So I went to student counseling. So once it started getting pretty bad, this was around third week of spring quarter, I kind of started to talk to a family friend who was a psychiatrist because, my mom was getting a little bit worried about me, and I was like, this is really not normal. This is not the normal amount of anxiety I should be having. What really set me off was that I had a panic attack in Harper. That was like probably the worst I've had in my life. I've had pretty bad panic attacks in high school as well, especially around AP testing. But, in Harper feeling like I needed to run away and scream was just not good. And I went back to my room as a first year. My roommate wasn't there, thank goodness, because I didn't want to burden her with that. That was also another issue. I didn't necessarily want to burden my friends with my issues. So I went back to my room and I was like crying and hyperventilating, and it was really odd. So that's when, I was like, okay, maybe I need to see a psychiatrist and start getting medication. I did eventually try to make an appointment with SCS. However, they scheduled an appointment for like May 10th or something, and that was at the end of the quarter. So I was supposed to go through this whole quarter basically without help. I advocate for myself pretty strongly, and I'm pretty assertive. So I decided at that point, after speaking to my therapist and how horrible I was feeling, to just go to the emergency room and make sure that I was seen by a psychiatrist. I didn't have any suicidal thoughts or anything really that extreme, but I knew it was getting to a point where it was interfering too much with my schoolwork, and I knew I had to do something about it. So I sat there for about 4 or 5, maybe 6 hours, something like that. I sat there and finally they let me in. So it took a while to see a psychiatrist, but they started me on medication. They gave me some Ativan. They're like, please calm down. But basically, because I went to the ER, I was able to see my psychiatrist at SCS quickly, actually within a few days. So that was a very interesting experience for me. They referred me to a therapist outside. They explained to me that it was a temporary fix to be seeing them at SCS. It's more beneficial to have a therapist outside of SCS because they make it that way. So you don't necessarily come back. And that's understandable because there's just so many students coming in. I don't think they have the capacity to help everyone. It would have been beneficial to know that getting to see a psychiatrist would be very difficult. I do think it requires a lot of patience, and in order to efficiently move through it, I think you have to kind of go in there saying, I want to see a psychiatrist. So that's definitely something that I think they can improve, is the amount of time it takes to see new patients. For example, now if I wanted an appointment with my psychiatrist, he could make it in a few weeks or the next week. And for someone who's in such a horrible position like I was, to be waiting a whole quarter is absolutely ridiculous. It's, they've taken all this work to establish it and develop it, and it's in a beautiful building with so many staff. Why not develop it a little bit more? Especially in a place like Chicago, where really the student culture kind of breeds more anxiety and depression. Not only that, but there's a lot of pressure because the general trend is we were all amazing in high school, and now we're being told that we're not necessarily amazing, that we can just be good. And that's especially during first year, that is a very difficult transition period. Externally, I think there's still a stigma, and that's, if you have anxiety and you're not dealing with it, like, how did you even get here? Like, you know, what kind of student are you? Or maybe it's as simple as, I don't want my parents to know that I'm struggling. I don't want to take medication because, you know, it's something that's frowned upon. Coming from like Turkish background, people don't necessarily understand that medication is important. Even having a conversation with my mother recently, she's like, don't tell people that you're on medication. But I disagree with that because I think it's important for us to talk about it so that people can be less afraid of utilizing these tools that we have. Medication is not perfect, therapy is not perfect, but a combination can help. And I definitely think that's something that we need to take advantage of.